Hey guys, it's Joel from guntoter.org. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be discussing a AR conversion that's actually been around for, I think we're at like 10, 12 years at this point. It's actually managed to be both ahead of its time and behind its time. And of course I'm talking about the Faxon Firearms ARAK or ARAK-21, which is a long stroke AK style complete upper that drops directly on a AR lower. Um, it's been getting some new attention, I guess. I've seen new videos popping up on YouTube. They've been doing a little bit more advertising, so I thought that I would kind of give my thoughts, having owned one for a while at this point, and we'll kind of see what you guys think in the comments. So first off, we probably need to talk about a little bit of history. Like I said, we got to go back 10, 12 years. It's a great time to be alive, by the way. Digi-camo, all the rage. Lots of different camouflage patterns popping up. We didn't know at the time what the attachment system was going to win. You had Picatinny, you had M-Lock, and you had Keymod all kind of duking it out, and there hadn't been a clear winner yet. You also had a lot of people trying to fit piston systems into ARs. You had the HK 416 or the MR 556. You had the SIG 516. PWS was obviously doing their thing because they've been doing their thing for a while and doing it really well. You had Adams Arms. I believe you had Superlative. Like there's a whole bunch of different gas piston kits and guns that were coming out, but all of them were essentially retrofit, right? Like they were all designed to kind of jam a piston system into a standard AR. The ARAK really was like, Faxon was just like, hold my beer and watch this, because it took a completely different tact. It literally took the internals of an AK, conformed them down to 5.56, and then put them in this really well-built upper that you could slap directly on an AR lower with zero issues. It was also bufferless, so you didn't have to worry. You could do folding stocks and things like that. Now, back then, there wasn't the plethora of folding stocks that there are now, such as the ones that I reviewed in my last video. So it was really a very weird time. So for what it was back then, it was very, very much ahead of its time, at least in my opinion. Now, what you're seeing now with this kind of explosion in bufferless systems, with the AR or the BRN 180, with the Jackal, with the ARAK is still around, with the MCX, like all these new versions that are out there. I feel like now is the time when the ARAK is actually falling behind a little bit because they really haven't made a lot of major changes in the last 10 to 12 years. But I also think that it's a time when it could really shine with some modifications. So first we're going to talk a little bit about the ARAK, and then once we're done with that, we're going to kind of talk about my thoughts about how Faxon could revitalize this and really get in there and compete with some of the modern systems that are out there. All right, so first off, let's talk about the features of the ARAK. There's actually really a lot going on here. As you can see, if you watched my last video, obviously I have this mounted on the same lower that I previously had my BRN 180 mounted on, and the reason for that is because of the B5 stock, which we will talk about why I like this particular stock with this upper here in a minute. But first, as you can see, it's monolithic. I mean, this is all one big piece of aluminum. You can see these bolts here. Basically, because it is an AK style system, it's a long stroke. They were aware that there could be a lot of wear between the steel internals and the aluminum of the actual upper. So what they did was they actually bolted rails in here, steel rails. So you've got steel riding on steel versus steel riding on aluminum. I believe the Jackal also does that. And I will say that when I opened the Jackal up for the first time, I really thought that Faxon had licensed the ARAK to PSA because the internals are remarkably similar. But moving on. as you can see, it was a Picatinny style. There used to be rails on either side. I pulled those off simply because I didn't need them for most of what I do. It does have a very large charging handle here where you can put 2 fingers. It also folds, which is actually a really neat little advantage there, which the Jackal does not have, and I've heard people ask for. The ARAK beat them to it. It does have a multi-position gas regulator. You can actually turn the gas off and basically make it into a bolt action gun if you wanted to. You can actually do, it has a quick change barrel. You can actually pull these bolts right here, take the entire barrel unit off, slap a new one on, screw it back down. It really takes 5 minutes. It's really super quick to actually change out a barrel on this. You actually used to be able to buy kits. Like you'd have this 16-inch barrel and then you could buy a 12.5-inch barrel that went with it. Now, Faxon has done some very, very light updating in the last 10 to 12 years. The main thing they've done is the newer ARAKs are actually, you can do ambidextrous ejections. You can switch it right or left. But really that's the major change they've made in 12 years. You know, the new ones that they're, new-ish ones that they're still marketing are still Picatinny. You know, they haven't switched it out for M-LOK. I think that is a little bit of a downside to the new ones, but I mean that's their choice right now. Also, as you can see, it's kind of hollowed out right in here. You can use a standard bolt catch, you know, as opposed to the Jackal where you have to have the thinned out bolt catch. You don't have to do that with theirs. Takedown is actually very, very similar to the Jackal. I should say the Jackal is very, very similar to this because this one came first, but it does have one extra step. Here you can see there's actually a cross pin. Pop that cross pin. You got your AK style spring, and then you can just pull the entire bolt assembly out, bolt carrier bolt assembly out, just like you would with a AK or with the Jackal. So really, if you've seen the Jackal come apart, you've pretty much seen the ARAK come apart with that additional step. So as you can see here, it does have a really, really high top rail. And you know, I mentioned that I use the B5. This is the reason I chose the B5, because with this adjustment, even with my optic here mounted on the lowest mount I have for it, you still need a little bit of extra height on the comb to get eye level with that high rail. So that's kind of one downside to it. Overall though, from having shot this, it's a really solid gun. It is a little heavy, but I would argue if you've held a Jackal, if you've used a Jackal, it's about the same as far as weight goes. But it, you know, it's a little front heavy, but not, I don't think it's a really big deal. The weight actually also helps absorb a lot of the recoil. Like it's a really smooth shooting gun. It does tend to get a little warm, but I've actually noticed that a lot of the new ones tend to get pretty warm. I think one of the big things with this particular upper is that because it's not free float, so you have the barrel touching here, but you also have, this is actually all touching, you know, right here at your gas block. So all that heat from that gas block is transferring out into these rails. I think if Faxon were to go and free float that, it would probably help get rid of some of that overheating and that heat transfer. But it's really reliable, and I enjoyed shooting it. Like I said, for the time, you know, it was ahead of its time. But for now, with the plethora of new uppers and stuff that you have out there, especially where the vast majority of them are M-LOK and free float, you know, I think it has fallen behind a little bit. But I think that it would be very easy for Faxon to bring this thing up into kind of the modern era, because it already has several advantages, in my opinion, over, say, the Jackal. Obviously, it has the ambidextrous charging handle. You can switch it back and forth. It's folding. The Jackal doesn't have that, and people have specifically asked. It has the quick change barrel. Jackal doesn't have that. The BRN doesn't have that. The MCX is the only one that I'm aware of off the top of my head that has a quick change style barrel. So, you know, it's got that advantage. You know, it's really well positioned. It just needs to be brought up just a little bit more. You know, you don't have to change out, like I said, you don't have to change out the bolt catch. That's a benefit, right? It's everything in this lower is standard. There's nothing you need to change out in this lower to slap this upper on and make it run. The weight, like I said, I don't think is actually a major issue. Like, it doesn't bother me. The fact that the newer versions are already ambidextrous. That's your word of the day. It's late while I'm trying to record this. You can switch out the ejection ports so you can eject right or left. I mean, it really has a lot going for it, in my opinion. Now, if Faxon could kind of M-lock it, and in my opinion, again, this is all my opinion, I don't know why I keep saying that, but it's all my opinion. If they could take this front end, obviously I said M-lock it, free float it, but also if they could come up with a way that, you know, let's say this is the standard length right here, you know, you can chop it off, make this the standard length, right? That would allow for a 16-inch or the 12.5. But then if you could have a second piece that could bolt on to where it would actually extend the rail a little bit, I think you would have people that would really enjoy that feature. Now, with that said, you have to find a way to do all of that and keep the price point pretty close to what it is now. The price point on this, I believe, is $9.99, which is right about there with the Jackal. Cheaper than an MCX, and right about there with the BRN. So, but again, it has a lot of features that the BRN, even the new Gen 3, doesn't have. So if you could keep the price point about the same, even if you bumped it up maybe to, you know, $1,100, $1,200, I still think it would be a huge bargain, just because of the features that you'd be getting if they could make it happen. So Faxon, if you're listening, I don't know why you would be, but if you are, those are my thoughts. I normally don't accept things for free, but if you'd like to, you know, come up with all those things I talked about and then send me one to test, I got you. But yeah, overall, like, it's a little frustrating to me to see a design that was ahead of its time sit stale, especially when I think it is completely within Faxon's grasp to make this thing just the new hotness. Couple other things I think they're going to have to improve. For those of you who have shopped PSA's Jackal site, spare parts. Even the BRN, you can get spare parts. Super easy. They're all over Brownell's website. They're all over PSA's website. There are virtually no spare parts for this upper, and that is a problem for me. Now, granted, it's overbuilt. Your chances of needing spare parts for, you know, any time soon after you buy it, it's pretty small. But I still think that having the spare parts available is a demonstration that they are dedicated to actually supporting this upper, which is, I think, one of the reasons that it never really caught on was that Faxon never, they kind of made it, threw it out there, and then they didn't really support it. It was constantly out of stock. Yeah, I mean, obviously they were focusing on a lot of stuff with their regular AR barrels, their Glock barrels, their SIG barrels. Like, they've got a lot of stuff going on. And I don't think that they have really dedicated the resources or the marketing that they should have to this conversion. And that's something they're going to have to do if they want to compete with the Jackal. But overall, again, I think it's an awesome gun. I would love to see it updated. I would love to get my hands on, you know, a fully tricked out one, just because I think now is the time, right? This is when everything's proliferating. This is when people are interested. This is when people are buying. Now's the time to probably get into this, in my opinion. For the record, though, I'm not any sort of financial analyst, so maybe take what I say with a grain of salt. And obviously, from my viewer account, I'm not a marketing expert either, so there's that. But yeah, so I hope that was useful for you guys, or at least semi-interesting. If it was, if you think that this is a cool concept and you would like to see it brought back and actually supported and modernized, drop a comment down below. Who knows, maybe Faxon will swing by and read the comments and get interested. But overall, if nothing else, you got to see something that was a little bit of a early adopter of the gas piston uppers, the unique gas piston bufferless uppers. So again, thanks for watching. If you would like to go by the store, check out things like this t-shirt. Every item that we sell in our store, all of the profits go back into supporting this channel, buying stuff to review, and just basically trying to keep this channel running. So thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.